Hi, I'm Teresa, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing my 8-ball wrap up and I'm a bit scared because I read 18 books this month and I'm gonna have to talk about them all in one video. This is by far the most books I've ever read in a month. I think the previous record was 12, so I'm quite proud of myself. Turns out lockdown is good for one thing, and that is me reading. There's also the fact that I didn't have uni, didn't have work, couldn't go out with friends. Right now my life is condensed into just reading and YouTube and scrolling through social media endlessly. So yes, here I am with a new video. I'm gonna get into it quickly because I don't want it to be stupidly long. So I definitely won't be talking about all of these books as much as I want to, but as always I have mini reviews on my Instagram story highlights and on my Goodreads, which are both linked below. And for the couple of arcs I'll be mentioning, these are advanced copies, I have big long proper reviews on my Goodreads as well. So encourage you to check out those if you're interested in finding out more about what I thought about certain books, because I probably won't have time to talk about everything properly here. So on we go with the video. So the first book I read this month was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read most of this in March, but finished it at the very beginning of April. I read this on audiobook and I really enjoyed it. I thought the audiobook was so good. It was just really immersive, and it used so many different it had so many different qualities that really interest me in a book, one of them being the unreliable narrators, which you definitely got in this book and I found really entertaining. And yeah, overall I just really enjoyed the book, as I've already said, but it's true, and I don't know what else I can really say about it. I definitely think I was right to read it on audiobook because I did reread the first bit in physical copy just because I'd gone a long time without listening to it, and the audiobook is definitely, in my experience, a lot better and definitely really brought the book to a new level. So yes, I gave this book 5 stars, and I've got Taylor Jenkins Reid's other book, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, on Audible, and I'm very excited to start it. The next book I read was The Copper Gauntlet by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. This is the second book in the Magisterium series, and it was the first book I read for my Owls as part of the magical readathon that I did this month. Check out my TBR video and see a lot of these books again if you fancy. But yes, I read this. This was very short and probably not my favourite book in the series, because I've since finished the series. But yeah, it was good. I ended up giving this one 3 stars because it was good, but I really expected more from this series after such a good first book, and from the authors, because Holly Black and Cassandra Clare are fairly well known in the YA book community. Very popular, and I've not read all of their books, but I was expecting more. Definitely it was good, but it wasn't nearly as good as it could have been, was basically my review. And that goes for, I think, the whole series actually. It just didn't live up to my expectations at all. I just thought it could have been so much more. But I read it, it's alright. The next book I read was also for the magical readathon, and that was I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver. I gave this one 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. It's the first time in a while that I'd read a book and just flown through it. You know, not looked at page numbers, not considered like, oh, I still have some X amount of pages. I just flew through it and I was like, oh, I'm very near the end. Yes, it's a really good book. It really explores some very important themes. The author, Mason Deaver, and also the main character, Ben, they're both non-binary, so there's discussion of that. Ben goes to therapy, there's discussion of mental illness. There's really just a lot of important things in this book, and it's one that I would definitely recommend. The next book I read on ebook, which was Wolfsong by TJ Klune. This is a book I'd been meaning to read for a while. I've heard so many good things about TJ Klune, so I wanted to pick up the series, and it was very, very good. It was a lot more than I was expecting. The way TJ Klune in this book wrote about family and just all the emotions that the main character feels, and the way it came across with this really, really impressive narrative style and writing style, I loved it. It just added so much to the book. It became less, the book was kind of almost pitched to me as a kind of romance book, but it's so much more. The family aspect is so well written, and it was really just, it was a delight to read, basically. So I ended up giving that one 4 stars. The next book, or books, I read was Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. And this is a graphic novel, and it's very well known, so you've probably heard of it. The first book was on my Magical Readathon TBR, and the second 2 were not, but after I finished this one, I had to read more, so I sat and I read them in an afternoon, all 3. These books, these are my first graphic novels and my first Alice Oseman books, and I'm very impressed. All around, they all got 5 stars. Alice Oseman really talks about so many important themes in her books, and I've not read any of her novels yet, but just looking at them, I know that she really does a lot of discussion on mental health, and there's definitely things to do with that in Heartstopper, but also in Heartstopper, at least since I read it, the characters are just so real, and I really love reading about them in a way that I wasn't expecting from a graphic novel, just because in a book, you know, you get so much description and you don't get that in a graphic novel. But the way Alice Oseman draws faces, they're so expressive, so you don't need it to say this is what he was thinking, you know, because you look at him. And I wasn't expecting that to be so effective, but it was, and it really made these books wonderful. So yes, they all got 5 stars. They were all just so fun to read, and I enjoyed them a lot. Next up is another book for my Magical Readathon, that is Le Petit Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. This is the French edition of The Little Prince, and I really wasn't expecting to enjoy this book as much as I did. It wasn't also as difficult as I was thinking it would be, which is great. I mean, it is a children's book, it says junior right on there, but still, I'm impressed with myself. I read like little bits. I was planning on doing a little bit every day for maybe a week or 2, but then I read the last over half in one sitting, which I really struggle to do in French books just because my brain gets so tired of all the translating. I do not know how people read in their second languages, like props to you. But yeah, I did really enjoy it, and I like that now I'm in on this thing that everyone seems to know about, because obviously it is a classic and is very well known. I'll just say I don't tend to rate the books I read in French just because I don't feel right doing it, because I know that I've probably not taken it in and appreciated as much as I could have, because I just probably haven't grasped all the words or all the meanings, and so I've not rated it, but I did enjoy it, so don't see that I've not given it any stars and think I hated it. The next book was again for the Magical Readathon, and that was Cersei by Madeline Miller. This book was a bit of a disappointment to me because it's so hyped, so many people love it so much. I adored The Song of Achilles, or Achilles, how do you say his name, by Madeline Miller as well, but this one I honestly just find it so boring. I did push through. I considered just leaving it, DNFing it, but I pushed through because people always say it gets better at the end, and my friend who's also read it and kind of thought the same as me said it did get better at the end, but it got better, but not enough for me to think, wow, this book's amazing, like everyone else does. So I ended up giving it 3 stars because Madeline Miller's writing for one, and just it did get entertaining, and I did enjoy certain aspects of it. It felt like a chore to read sometimes. I just was bored, really. No other way to say it. The next book I read was another popular book that I was disappointed by. I borrowed this one from my library and also read it for the Magical Readathon, and that is Middlegame by Seanan McGuire. This book is so hyped, and the description made it sound so good, and I was so just ready to love it, but I didn't. I found it was confusing when I was kind of bored. It wasn't what I was thinking it would be. It kept going in a direction I wasn't appreciating at all, and I just didn't end up enjoying it as much, basically. So I think it also got 3 stars. The next book I read was The Bronze Key, which is the 3rd Magisterium book by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. I gave this one 4 stars. I did think it was better than the previous, and it definitely went in an interesting direction by the end, and a bit of a cliffhanger. And yeah, I don't know, I really struggle separating books and series, so I'll just actually combine it. So that was the 3rd book. I also read the 4th and the 5th, The Silver Mask and The Golden Tower. And overall, they were kind of 3 4-star reads. I don't know, just the same as what I said with the original one, they could have been better, so much better, but they weren't bad. Is basically what I'm trying to say. They did end up going kind of in the direction I was hoping for, though in a different way, I don't know. But yeah, they were good. They were fast reads. They got incredibly shorter. They were like 200. One of them was 200 pages and the others were about 260. So they're very quick, fast reads, and I read them after my last 2 had been a bit iffy and I didn't want to get in a slump. So yeah, that was those. Then I read The Crown's Game as the last book in my Magical Readathon, and then the sequel, The Crown's Fate, both by Evelyn Skye. These 2 are 19th century Russian inspired fantasy, well, set in 19th century Russia, and they've been on my shelf for years, and I had this feeling in my head from when I'd first tried to read it that they were really dense and difficult. They're not. They were so fun and so fast to read, so immersive, and I really enjoyed them. I really liked magic, I love the setting, I like the characters. They're very good. Typical YA fantasy, but not completely typical. That doesn't make any sense. I had a lot of tropes from YA fantasy that you expect, but also the setting and things were unique. And then I read an advanced copy of Queen and Coin and Whispers by Helen Corcoran. This is an upcoming FF book. It follows a new queen called Leah, who ascends a corrupt throne, and a girl called Xenia, who she takes on as her spy master, and they basically together try and get rid of the corruption in the court. And I really enjoyed this one. I really struggled with what to rate it, between 4 and 5 stars, but I think just the world building let me down a bit, because you didn't know a lot about the world and things weren't always explained as much as I'd like. But overall it was so good. The yearning, the pining, it was good. And I really enjoyed the romance aspect of it so much, but also the political intrigue plot. The next book I read was also an ARC. This was The Extraordinaries by TJ Klune. This one, it was so cute and fun and lighthearted, and I just really enjoyed reading it. It is, how do I even explain it? There's so many aspects of it that were so fun. You've got your main character Nick, who who has ADHD, which is own voices, I should point out, and he writes fan fiction for the Extraordinaries. They are superheroes who, kind of like the X-Men, have just sprung up with natural powers and they just kind of exist in the world. And there's two in his city called Shadow Star and Pyro Storm, and he's a big old crush on Shadow Star, so he writes fanfic about him. And this is an important aspect of the book. The Extraordinaries are so present in the book, but there's friendship, there's family. TJ Klune does that so well, and it was just so fun to read. Basically, there is also romance, and I liked it. And two of his friends, or two girls who are together, they're so cute. I truly love them. So that's another book I definitely recommend. This is another one I'm between 4 and 5 stars on. I can't decide. Okay, finally, my last book was Avi Cantor Has 6 Months to Live by Sasha Lamb. This is a really short novella following a trans boy who one day finds written on the mirror in school, Avi Cantor has 6 months to live. Avi's his name, but he's not come out as trans yet. People do not know that that's his name. They still use his dead name. He's still seen as not a man. And so there's that kind of mystery to it, and he meets a boy who turns out to also be a trans boy and completely passes this wasn't known, and they become friends, and then they become more. And there's also like magic, and there's a demon, there's really just lots of interesting aspects. And it was really cute. Well, not cute. It was really nice, quick read. It definitely deals with some heavy topics, but I really enjoyed reading it. That has been my wrap up. I'm sorry this is probably such a long video, I'll make this quick. Thank you for watching and supporting me. Hope you're all doing well, staying safe, and see you in another video.